everyone. Welcome to my video cast. And today I have with me Ariella Goichman.
Hi.
Hey, Ariella.
Hi.
So just a few words on, my relationship with Ariella. I think we met physically. The last time we actually sat in the room together and had a conversation was
10 years ago.
About 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Unbelievable. And I've been following you on social media ever since.
Me too.
And the one thing I know and love about you is that you have a way of doing things your way. And there's this...
Sometimes to my disadvantage.
So I was going to say there's something fearless about you. And I know that, no one's really fearless. So, things that can look fearless on the outside are more complex on the inside.
Yeah.
So how would you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Ariella Goichman Garber now.
Yes.
Well, you met me when I was just Ariella Goichman.
True.
I was born with a physical birth defect called Spina Bifida, which has been gaining more and more recognition over the last few years in the general public. I am an English teacher, a fashion history blogger and fashion historian. I deal a lot with fashion research and why we wear what we wear and where does it come from. And for the last 5.5 years, I'm a mother of 2 little 5.5-year-old twin monkeys, which pretty much takes up a lot of my time. And yeah, that's the most I can say.
Okay. So earlier we had a short chat and we, mentioned a few things. And I know that there are many things that you're passionate about and you write about.
Yes.
And I've added a link to your blog and to your social media so people can find you and follow you.
Thank you.
So if we were to kind of scan and say, out of all of the things that you're passionate about, what is like vibrating in the most intense way at the moment? It's like, what comes up right now?
A lot of things. Well, in recent years, with the resurgence of acceptance culture and what we call in Hebrew, hachala. What's the exact English word for that?
Containing people that are...
Containing, exactly, containing.
Yes.
A lot of marginalized communities and societies have come out and educated the general public about their condition.
Mm-hmm.
And with the disabled community, especially in Israel, in recent years, we've been demonstrating and fighting for equal rights and better stipends. And people have shown sympathy. Yes, it's always sympathy, but also misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And it's become very important for me to teach my readership or just people who follow me what it is to be disabled, but not the gruesome medical tearjerker narrative that people have been used to. But what does it actually mean to live with a disability, and how I specifically see the world, how other disabled people, not that I can speak for all of them, but how they see the world.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes how society sees us.
So tell me, how is it like for you to live with a disability?
Well, obviously, the more I live on this earth, the easier it gets. And since becoming an adult, it got easier. And the world is changing for the better. My son, my 5.5-year-old son, is on the autistic spectrum. And the way our culture, our country, is providing him with treatment,
mm-hmm.
and his catering to his special needs and the school system I'm in awe of that there was nothing like that when I was growing up.
No, we're a different generation. I said we are a different generation.
We are, and it's becoming so much easier. I mean, obviously, the world is now going through a huge hardship, which makes it 10 times harder for everybody, let alone disabled people who need to be outside for our mental health, our physical health. We need to get our food, we need to get our medicine. So it's much harder for everyone, let alone us. But the world in general is getting to be so much more understanding and catering to special needs, which, as I said, was not at all around when I was growing up. There was a story I posted recently where I don't like complaining or crying about things that have happened, because that's not my point. But I did tell a story about me having one of 17 surgeries that I've had throughout my life, because I'll sidetrack a little if one of your readers or listeners haven't, or viewers, haven't heard of Spina Bifida. It's basically a missing vertebra in the spine during birth. And the spinal fluid tends to leak out and cause developmental damages to the spine or the nervous system. I have a numbness of the nervous system in my lower body, which means I can't feel most of my legs. I can't feel my feet. And I have some internal problems with kidney, stomach, and bladder. And most of my surgeries have been orthopedic. So I've missed a lot. I missed out on a lot of school when I was growing up. Basically, first and second grade, I was just not there. Now that's quarantine.
Yeah, it's like, one of the things that
and no Zoom classes.
Yeah, a lot of my clients say quarantine. That's like peanuts. I spent weeks and months in the hospital.
Oh no, they have to. Those able-bodied people have to spend 2 weeks at home.
Oh my God.
No. We've spent years cooped up at home. We know all the tricks.
Oh my God, yeah. Long hospitalizations, long rehabilitation. I mean, I can say it for myself as well. Quarantine, that's like. We were disconnected and now we're back, and we were talking about.
As disabled people, we have a history of being cooped up and staying at home. So
yeah,
it's not that it's not a big deal for us right now, but it's somehow more manageable for us.
We have a set of skills that people that have not experienced this don't have yet.
Yeah. And I was talking about being 15 and spending a lot of time at home because I've had one of, as I said, 17 surgeries on my right leg. Because for most of my life, it has been twisted inwards, my foot. And it caused a lot of problems walking and a lot of pressure sores. And I was in ninth grade, 15 years old, had one of the 10th or 11th surgery. And after that, I had a very, very long recovery at home because of a post-operation infection in the leg. At the end of that year, I was supposed to graduate junior high school and go to high school. And I looked around and I realized I have no grades on my report card because I wasn't there. I don't really have a lot of friends in my class because I didn't meet them. I didn't get together with them throughout the whole year. And I was pretty much an emotional wreck, not just being a normal 15-year-old, but with everything else added on. So my mom and I decided to appeal to the local municipality of where we lived and ask to stay another year in junior high school and not graduate. The educational department of our municipality agreed, but it was at that time, I don't know how it works today, but at that time it was still up to the principal of the school to make the final decision. And summer passed and they haven't had any written agreement from him. And when I arrived to my junior high school, same ninth grade, September 1st, he came out and he said, "You're not a student here."
Oh my God.
Because he didn't want it on his record that somebody in his school repeated the year.
And he didn't have the decency to let you know during summer break. Oh my God.
No. I was a teenager, so I don't know the whole bureaucracy or paperwork that went into that. But the bottom line that my mom did allow me to know was that he just didn't want it on his record. There was a lot of screaming between my mom and him in his office, but all I got to
imagine.
It was along the lines of her yelling, "You'll never work in this town again."
Like, this is a mama bear in action.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but the class that I requested to go into, the class that I did know some kids in and had some friends in, he placed it on the second floor. And I was on crutches with a cast recovering from an infection in my bones.
And you couldn't just fly to the second floor? I mean, seriously, Ariella?
That amazing.
Oh my goodness.
So we argued, and the school counselor got involved and tried to speak with him, and he just kept saying that I'm not a registered student and there's nothing he can do, and that's how the classes were divided, and that's that. And my mom looked at me and said, right, this is how it is. Take your crutches, hold on tight, climb up to the second floor, and let's show him that we don't need any favors. And that's what I did for 2 weeks. Eventually, after 2 weeks and conversations, phone calls that he had from a municipality, letters that my mom sent, talks with the school counselor, he backed down, he registered me, and he even moved my class to the first floor right next to the entrance. And at that time, and even for years to come, I just assumed that was normal. I assumed people just don't understand. Yeah. And the world isn't really built for us, so we take what we can get. And in recent years, becoming an adult, becoming a parent, having traveled a little and seeing that things actually do work differently in other countries, the disabled community started having demonstrations and demanding equal rights and accessibility.
Yeah, there's a very active.
Very active. And I started thinking, oh, wait a minute, this isn't normal behavior. And if somebody makes something accessible for us, if they put a ramp outside the restaurant, if they clear away their garbage from the street so we can pass by with a wheelchair.
It's the smallest things, isn't it?
If they put a ramp in a school, if they allocate accessible special bathrooms that aren't just the broom closet for the janitor, that's not a favor. That's not being gracious or being nice. It's a basic right.
It is. So there's something about the attitude of being altruistic and gracious when it's actually basic human rights.
That's right. And I see that a lot. And my recent post was about that, where somebody shared this very beautiful photo, and that's how we kind of get into inspiration porn, of a young man and a young woman on the pavement or on the road, and in the middle of the rain. It was raining, and the young man is holding out an umbrella. And the post was dedicated to kindness and graciousness and doing the right thing for others. And I looked at it and thought, well, maybe that's her husband. Maybe that's her boyfriend. Maybe they're in love.
Maybe just a friend.
Yeah, because and I wrote about it saying, well, if we saw this photo, if we saw a photo of a young man and a young woman, and no one's disabled and no one's with crutches or in a wheelchair or any other special aid, if there's just two able-bodied people, a man and a woman, standing in the rain holding an umbrella, our first thought would be, how romantic, how chivalrous, what a gentleman, how amazing. But because she's in a wheelchair, we automatically take away the romanticism of it. and we automatically saying, he's so gracious, he's so kind.
And he even got wet, holding the umbrella. Oh my God, what a man. So
And I mean, I'm old-fashioned. I like it when men open doors and pull up chairs and all that.
but that's not
I'm
it.
old-fashioned, but
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it isn't nice or isn't gracious or isn't sweet of someone to do that. It absolutely is. Which is where the treatment that disabled people get is so tricky. Because unlike chauvinism or racism or any other isms, nobody is intentionally treating, me or other disabled people that I know, nobody is intentionally treating us cruelly or excluding us, not intentionally. But there's always an undertone of pity and an undertone of inequality.
So what makes a gesture inspiration porn? And let's just say a few words. What is inspiration porn?
Inspiration porn is something that I'm still struggling to define it to myself in words. I see it, I feel it, but it's really hard to pinpoint.
I think
it was a term coined by an Australian comedian and activist Stella Young a couple of years ago, who unfortunately passed away from her illness. She was a disabled Australian woman who became an educator and public speaker.
Yeah.
And she said that she came up with the term inspiration porn, and porn comes from the fact, not that it's provocative, but it's really cheap.
It's cheap and it gives you a thrill.
Yeah.
That.
Because she was asked to give a talk about nothing to do with disability. She was studying law in Australia, I think, and she was asked to give a talk in a high school about Australian law or law of Australian education system or something along those lines. And she was in a wheelchair, mechanical wheelchair, I believe. She came into a school and it was during recess, and one of the 12th graders was like, oh, excuse me, miss, the inspirational speakers go to the main hall.
So I think,
what do you mean inspirational speakers? I'm here to talk about law.
Oh, you're in a wheelchair? You're here to give us inspiration.
You are not a person. You're an inspiration.
So it has to do with objectification. So like in sexual porn, we have objectifications of body to give us a thrill and make us feel something that has to do with us. And I think with inspiration porn, it's the objectification of disabled people or people that, and the thrill is that they give us is that we feel empathy, and then we feel so good about ourselves that
we objectify someone's life and everyday being into a thing that would make us feel better about ourselves when that person is just going about their day.
Exactly.
And I've had several conversations about it, and people are saying to me, but it's inspirational that disabled people manage to have a pretty balanced everyday life. It is inspiring. And I had to think about it a lot, and I thought, well, yes, if something that I achieve can inspire someone, great. If something I say can inspire, if something I create can inspire someone, amazing. I'm all here for that.
Yeah.
But if just me being me going to the supermarket to pick up some milk makes someone feel so much better about their lives, that's like, I wasn't born to make you feel better.
Yeah. And when basically the person that you are that inspires you is reduced to their circumstances, illness, disability, whatever, you stop seeing an entire person. So, I always say, inspiration, you can be inspired by something specific. So it's like, I'm inspired by the way you did X, which inspires me to do X or Y. But it's not all of a sudden, it's you, it's dehumanizing in kind of a sexy way. but not,
Kind of.
Yeah.
And
It's
I
tricky.
think actually that's one of the things, and I will send you a link to one of my favorite talks by
Ooh,
late
yes.
Stella Young. That's one
And
of
I
the things.
probably added it to the post.
Yeah, she did refer to that in her TED talk a few years ago, where she said that when she was growing up in her town in Australia, the town hall, the municipality had a tradition of awarding a medal to an outstanding citizen every year. And when she was around the same age I was talking about, 14, 15, 16, someone from the municipality contacted her parents and said, "We would like to award your daughter with a medal." And her parents said, "But she didn't do anything."
No, she's just alive. She's breathing.
She was brave by simply living.
Yeah. That's not empowering.
No.
Not for the people. I do want to talk about, in this context, I want to talk about another post that you wrote. I think it was a few months ago. So I'll give the context, and then you'll probably you remember the post. There's this cooking reality show in Israel. Yes. See, I knew it. It's not MasterChef. It's like, couples cooking together, and then the couple that wins the show, they get a grant to open their restaurant, yada, yada, yada. Reality show. And there was this couple, and they don't have to be like a married couple, just a pair of people, coming together. Yeah. So there were these two friends. They were actually cooks in the army. And of course, like any reality show, you talk about, they share their lives. And one of the guys was talking about the fact that his wife was diagnosed with an illness, and he painted this picture of her being very, very sick. And I think he maybe mentioned disability. The thing is that he was nursing her.
Yes.
And everybody was like, "Oh, wow,
you amazing, brave man, you."
And then he went on to tell them the story where she actually decided to leave him. Now they had 3 or 4
kids. I think they were married, and she decided to divorce him.
She decided to divorce him, and she moved out, illness, disability, and all. And apparently she was struggling.
Packed up her medical aids and
Yep, she just took everything and moved out. And at some point he heard that she wasn't doing very well. She was struggling. And he went and he took her back. But the way he said it in Hebrew, it was almost like he was taking a parcel back or a sack of potatoes.
I retrieved her.
Yeah, I retrieved her.
I retrieved her.
And I remember sitting and watching that and going like, "Oh my God," because the only thing I could think about was that brave woman following her heart and soul and leaving a marriage that apparently wasn't doing her very well.
Despite how hard it is to be disabled and single, or disabled and living alone.
Exactly. And the next day I saw you wrote a post, I was like, yes. And I think I wrote back.
My post was actually referring to one of the judges on the show when he was telling that story. And he said she decided to divorce me. And one of the judges on the panel,
actually
the lady judge, her first reaction was, "What, the disabled woman? The disabled woman left you?"
Yeah.
We have choices?
And then she went on to say, "Oh my God, you're such a prince. You're an amazing guy. How could," like, I remember.
And I'm not saying what he did wasn't amazing. I know from people around me how hard it is. I know from my own parents how hard it is to nurse a disabled child. I know that my husband struggles with the hardships of sometimes living with my conditions. I completely understand that he had overcome hardships with living with her, and that is amazing, but it doesn't take away her human right to make decisions about her marriage and about her partnership with someone.
So she didn't exist in that story as a human being. And we all know that relationships are complex and divorcing is complex and it's painful. And sometimes people get back, but that wasn't the narrative. The narrative was, how come this woman wasn't so, grateful? Yeah. How did she even think about being, the fact was labeled, her act was labeled ungrateful and almost crazy. And I remember I divorced my ex-husband, the father of my daughter. And when I divorced him, I was still very, very sick. I couldn't work. I needed oxygen. I was bedridden most of the time. And I remember, my family supported me, his family supported him. It wasn't an easy decision. We were both unhappy, but I remember the reactions from my friend and from the environments, like, he loves you. And I remember that even when we actually went and we got the divorce, the rabbi said, you ungrateful woman. He's not hitting you. He's not getting drunk. You think another man will want you? And I'm like, are you serious?
I've heard that growing up within my closest friends group and my own family. And today there is so much conversation around empowering young girls to pick good relationships. And yet people still say to disabled women, he treats you with kindness. Why aren't you grateful?
Yeah, beggars can't be choosers.
Exactly. And I've heard this within my own family growing up. Oh, look at this nice young man. He treats you so well. Well, that's not enough.
No, it's not.
I want the same ability to choose my partners in my life as an able-bodied young woman. And when my husband and I get together, and my husband is amazing, but not for loving me, but for him being an amazing person. Whenever I would go into a hospitalization or even a checkup, and when you have a chronic disability or a disability from birth, a lifelong disability, usually they assign you a therapist or psychologist to check up on you when you're in hospitalization. And these are medical professionals. These are professionals from the psychology field. And each and every one of them was saying to me, do you feel inferior to your husband? How did your husband's family accept you? How does your husband make peace with your condition? And I'm like, well, I'm awesome. He met a nice, okay-looking blonde woman with a degree in English Lit and education. So I think yay for him.
Yeah. And she's also into fashion,
and I love fashion and I write about it. But the conversation, the narrative was always like, well, how do they accept you? How do they feel about you? It's never, what do you feel about them? And it almost doesn't matter what other things we achieve. It will always be, well, how does that amazing, heroic prince of a guy handle your condition? And yes, he's amazing and great for other reasons.
I think in that aspect, I'm privileged in a way that my disability, my illness is invisible. So if I don't share, people don't know. So I can kind of fly, under the radar.
But doesn't it come up eventually?
It does come up. It does come up. I remember in a conversation with a taxi driver. Sometimes long drives, I like to chat, and I kind of shared. And I remember that the one thing he had to say, asked me if I was married. I said I was divorced. And he said, "Oh my God, your ex-husband was a saint, because because of my illness, I cannot have more children." Which is okay by me, by the way. But I remember his reaction was total admiration and empathy towards my ex-husband for taking on a sick woman.
For taking you on.
Yep. And I remember, after the divorce, I started dating, and there was this guy. We went on a second date. He was very nice, very, a gentleman, stuff like that. So I invited him, for a cup of coffee. We had a nice conversation over a cup of coffee. And at some point, he became very handsy. And I was like, no, not going to happen. And he looked at me and he said, seriously? With your condition, do you think anyone else would want you? You should be thankful. I was like, cannot believe that actually came out.
I've heard that. I've heard no one will love you more than me. I've heard that.
So I said, get the fuck out of here. Seriously? But there is, I think one of the things that this takes me to sexuality. Many years ago, I was giving this workshop in London. I was in England, it was in London, for a group of people with pulmonary hypertension, which is my illness. And I was talking about sex, sexuality, and intimacy. And it was like, what do you mean sex and sexuality? It's like, no, we're busy surviving this, and we are busy being heroic, and we're busy being, overcoming the illness. That's like a luxury. That's for healthy people. It's like, no, it's not. This is health.
Yeah, it's often very hard to have a healthy relationship with your body when your body doesn't always work for you.
Yeah.
It's like, I always give this funny metaphor of, you have to drive through miles and miles in a beat up, broken car. You're not exactly going to enjoy the view.
Unless you really change your perspective and you set it as an intention. You say, even though this is a beat up, broken car, I am going to take the time to enjoy the view, because the view is important, because the view nurtures my soul.
And if I need to turn up that engine, I'll turn up that engine.
Definitely.
So yeah, that is a very, very problematic narrative, because we forget to empower disabled young women. And it's very hard to blame able-bodied people or able-bodied societies for it, because they do come from a place of caring and niceness.
And there is a way, we are all kind of conditioned to see the sexual body in a certain way, and even fat bodies are not sexual. Whenever we see
the struggle of the plus size community is very similar to the struggle of the disabled community
to reclaim that part in their identity. And I think I'm going to add to the links a link to this movie called Yes We Fuck. Have you seen that?
No.
It's really good. It's really, really good. It's a documentary. I think it was about this couple that basically helps people with illnesses, chronic illnesses, and disabilities reconnect with their sexuality and actually enjoy it. So it's a little bit graphic, but it's really good. So how would, we're kind of about to conclude this. If you were to kind of give a list of principles or tips, how do we need, as a society, as parents, as friends?
Oh, we haven't even gotten to the parental issue yet.
Oh yeah, so
that's a whole other Zoom talk.
We will need to meet again and talk about, about being.
We'll make a series.
Yes. But what are the things that we need to pay attention to when we are talking about empowering young women with disabilities?
That is something that's very hard for me to bullet point, because it's a huge issue that I'm still living with, and I'm not a young adolescent girl anymore. But first of all, as with all other young women in the world, we're people. Yes, we have a special condition, but we live in the same sphere, in the same society, in the same educational system, in the same political system as everybody else. And I know that it's sometimes even visually difficult to look beyond a big wheelchair or a pair of giant crutches, because the eye is automatically drawn to that. Yeah. And then the second thing is the person around it or within it. So try to see the person first. And I think that, and just understand that we have the same mental, emotional state, even if it's may be varied or a little bit.
And we're back again after being disconnected for the second time. But
my life is a series of technical problems.
So we're talking about empowerment.
Yeah, we were talking about empowerment, and we were talking, kind of wrapping up the conversation and talking about small tips for how to maybe treat or see differently a disabled person. And I think in the few minutes that I was fixing my computer, I got to think about it. And I did say that it's sometimes visually, physically difficult to see the disabled person because of maybe we walk differently, or maybe our body is built differently, or maybe we have all these medical aids around us that make it difficult to physically see us as equals or even people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I got a lesson about that pretty early in life because I was hospitalized a lot. And as a child, I was hospitalized with people who had very severe physical difficulties, sometimes very severe physical deformities, and that even daunted me as a child. I was perhaps afraid of approaching them. I was afraid of maybe being around them because being a child, you don't understand the world very well. And my mother always said to me, look people in the eye.
Yeah, always.
Because when you look people in the eye, it's very easy to sift out anything else.
And you really see them.
And then you see the people.
So one last question. Being a mother now, you said you're not a teenager anymore. So you're a woman, you're doing a lot in your life, and you're a mother and you have a relationship. What kind of advice would you give a younger woman? It's like, let's say, early 20s, as she is.
In this dating reality today with Tinder, oh my, I don't know.
No, it's like general in life. So, let's say a young woman, somewhere between 18 to 22. You'd had an opportunity to sit down, talk with her, and says, okay, so how do I start building my life? How do I, carve out the life that I want for me? How do I find out who is me? What would you say to her?
Well, I'm still on that journey, so I don't 100% know, but the thing I'm still saying to myself is don't make fear-based decisions.
Yeah. Very important.
Yes, life is a bit more scary for us disabled people because there's a lot more challenges and struggles, but that's no reason to make judgments upon. Don't come from a place of I'm a beggar, so I can't be a chooser. You absolutely can be a chooser.
Yes. You have a right to be a chooser.
Yeah. And with today's technology, which in my case isn't perfect, but in today's technology, there are so many more options of, well, the whole world is working from home now, so building a successful career is less physically challenging. The whole world is meeting and talking online, so physical meetings are less challenging. I'm not saying that there's a huge silver lining to this whole pandemic thing, but in a way, technology is coming through for us.
Yeah.
So carving out a social life, carving out a professional life, we can lean into technology. And just remember that just because we have that physical reality doesn't mean that it has to be the leader of our lives. And we absolutely have the right to be choosers.
Yeah. So choose. Okay.
Choose.
Yeah.
Choose like anybody else. Choose like any other girl in your class, or even better.
I think that's a good way to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Choose fearlessly.
Yeah. Well, I can't honestly say fearless because I am a fearful person and I do deal with issues of anxiety, and everybody has fears. You can't transform into this amazing superwoman and just disregard everything that scares you. But just know that it's okay to have fears, but they don't control you.
So let's change it and let's say respect the fear and give yourself permission to choose anyway.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I think that's more balanced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're good at this.
Dearest, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we will schedule another chat and talk about.
Absolutely. There's so much more to cover. And I'm so glad to finally see you after all these years.
It's been too long.
It has.
So, darling.
Once this whole mess is over, we'll schedule a coffee.
Yes. Or a glass of wine.
Oh, that's better. Okay.
On this happy note, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Shalom.
Bye.